Hi there, I thought I could make a video about the fuel injector replacement on a Honda Fit 2018 since I couldn't find one in YouTube. Also had codes P219A and P420 on my OBD, and after some research I concluded that it was the fuel injectors that were the problem. I also structured this video so that we could see the reasons why I made the video, then we're gonna go over the process, and then we're gonna go over the cost. Also made a PDF of what I did, a guide to myself. Basically, feel free to download if you want. Also, I'm not a mechanic, so do this at your own risk. But let's go over the process. We start by relieving the fuel pressure. We remove the fuse corresponding to the fuel pump. I got this diagram from startmycar.com. This will immediately stall the engine. Just note that. We remove the negative terminal after this with a 10mm socket. Remove the mass airflow sensor from the connector. We're basically trying to make room here. Remove the airbox. There are two bolts that hold the airbox housing. This one and that one. I think both are 10mm as well. Most of these bolts are. I think I left that one loose. It's inside a washer thing. Wiggle it out. Forgot about the screw, which is a Phillips. Then I realized this hard line is also in the way. We need to remove this one too. If you know a better way, let me know. But here I was just using a pick and a screwdriver. Okay. And there's also a hose down there. Sorry I forgot to show it, but it's just a pull-up. This came out after a bit of struggle as well. Oh wait, I did film it. That's the hose I was talking about earlier. As you can see, I kind of scratched it, so just be careful. Anyway, this should come out now like this. This was super dirty, so I cleaned it a bit. I taped off the throttle body and that hose down there. Okay, now the meat and potatoes of this job. We need to remove the fuel joint pipe. Again, do your research, but going by Honda's instructions, this is required. Sorry I forgot to change the settings here of this camera, so it looks a little bit warpy, but there's the bracket that holds the fuel pipe. I use a 10mm with the extension here. But yeah, just remove it and be careful here. I dropped the screw. Yep. But thankfully it was right there. Alright, back up here. Remove that hose. And then remove these two bolts. Okay, so context here. I had started this job on day 1. What you just saw here, it was my day 2, but I'm gonna show you my day 1 footage to take off the fuel rail cover. If you see this diagram, there are two bolts that are hidden from view. So where I am here, you feel a little bit of a groove, and that's where the bolt is. And again, I'm showing you here with the camera as best as I can, but you can see the bolt on the right there. And then the other one, if you go to the left, you will see it right above the alternator connector.
It's right there.
So when I was doing this, it was a tight fit, so my extension didn't fit first. So just attach your extension first and then connect your wrench. And try your best and be patient. I was using my magnetic tool here, but I still dropped my bolts, so just be careful. There it is. Okay, now the other one on the alternator side. This was a little bit harder to get to. You need to unplug that first. And same approach as before, connect your extension first and then your wrench. And this one I was able to catch it with my hand actually. Next, to undo those clips holding the black wire that you see there. In this one I'm just showing you I had a bit of a hard time taking this out. Okay, here's where I stopped on day one. I could not finish because I didn't have a 19mm wrench to take that bolt out. I thought I had one, but obviously I didn't. I had up to an 18mm, which didn't fit. But anyway, we can go back to day two to continue the job. So now you can take out the fuel rail cover. Finally, it is still connected to the black wire, so just be careful. I tucked it to the side. Now we have access to the fuel rail cover. Cover the underside since we're working with fuel. It might leak. I was able to crack it loose with the 19mm this time. I did struggle with the angle though, so I ended up using pliers to finish loosening it. Only a bit of fuel came out.
I think that's it.
Next is the top side of the fuel joint pipe. This one, at least for me, was hard to grab. So I struggled here. If you have a better way of grabbing it, do that. But like here, if you notice, I was able to turn it, but kind of clockwise. Obviously, we didn't want that. I wasn't able to do it at the end, so I began unplugging things. I began taking out the high pressure fuel pump. I don't know the consequences of taking this out, but at the time of editing this video, I have driven the car a couple of miles and I haven't had no issues. So here, after taking all of that out, I was able to finally grab it and I took it out. It took me a long time, so I didn't record it.
Finally.
Yep, finally. So here, I don't know what to tell you, but just wiggle the heck out of it until it comes out from the underside.
Jesus.
Okay, so next there's connectors that connect the fuel injectors. I'm using a pick here, but use whatever is best for you. They look like this. They have tabs at the bottom, so just picking them out one by one. The last one on the left was the hardest one to get to, FYI. Refer to the diagram that I shared, but if you can see here, notice that the first and sixth fasteners are nuts instead of bolts. So I just laid mine out in the order so I wouldn't forget. I also used my magnetic grabber here to make sure I didn't drop any of them. The instructions said to take out the whole rail, but see how hard I'm pulling here? It was pretty stuck.
It's pretty stuck, actually.
But wiggling side to side worked actually. The injectors didn't come out for me, so I used a pair of pliers to yank them out. Since I had the new hardware, I wasn't too concerned with breaking them. But if you see here, this semicircle rotating motion got them out. And as you can see, yes, they were pretty dirty. And this is a new one. You can see how clean it is. I'm glad I did this job. Okay, then you can move on to remove the rest. Make sure that all the gaskets, the dimensions, and everything matches between the old and the new part. Then I put on the new clips, like you can see here. I can't remember where I saw this, but you're not supposed to touch the white gasket or the tip. And then the O-ring on top needs to be coated with engine oil. Only put a little bit. So one of the Reddit posts said I could pop this right in, but it was hard for me. I'm not sure if I was unlucky, but I had to use considerable force to put this in. but this is why I had to use pliers to put them on. I did this later because I had issues, but I also put a little bit of oil in the cylinder hole, so don't forget about that. And since this is the point of the video, I'm leaving this part uncut, so just watch.
That little dent that the injector has. Snug.
Reminder again to coat the cylinder hole down there. At this point, the O-ring on top is more for the fuel rail that goes on top of it.
Okay. Then grabbing like that so that I don't damage the body.
Gently grab it here by the clips to not damage the body. And just got it down with the connector down.
Connector down. Being careful not to touch anything else on the way down there.
I think at this point I left it plugged in, but not all the way in because of the force needed. I figure I will use the rail as leverage. Once you're ready to put the rail back in, try to line it up as best as you can. If you have a better way of doing this, do share, but I used a wrench to push the rail in. There's a video out there that used the piece of wood to push it in, but anyway, a bit on each side until everything is flushed. So in my case, I had to come back. I took out the rail and then I pushed in each of the injectors with a hammer like you see here. There's a lot of force that's needed here.
And I'm doing like pulses, kind of like you're doing CPR.
Kind of like you're doing CPR. And then with my hand, just check that there's no gaps at all. So that's super important that you have no gaps at all. But once you manage to do that, put back all the nuts and bolts. Just remember the diagram from before. Also, I'm putting them back in an alternate pattern before I torque them. So after that's done, clip the connectors back. The last one here on the first cylinder was the hardest one for me, FYI. Now the new fuel joint pipe, comparing them again from the old one and the new one. This part came with this diagram. I'm putting it here for you to see, but this is what I got. These were the instructions. This also came with PEG, which is polyethylene glycol. So to start the replacement, it does indicate to loosen the high pressure fuel pump. As you know, I already had done this step, but after that's done, I don't know what to tell you, but just wiggle the fuel joint pipe back in. So this is in the paper, but follow the paper. But coat with the PEG the top of the high fuel pressure pump, and then the threads that connect the mouth to the fuel joint pipe. And then the same thing at the bottom, the connecting end, and then the threads. Don't forget about the bracket, but loosely thread everything. And then once you put everything in, torque everything. This is from the paper. So that's a summary of what I learned. So check before put everything back together. Absolutely no gaps between all the connections. When connecting the top and bottom ends on the fuel joint pipe, make sure that they are seated flush against the high pressure fuel joint pipe and the fuel rail. From what I read, these are crushed when they are torqued, so you want to only do it once. And then lastly, there is a clip that connects the metal end of the high fuel pressure pump to the fuel line, I think. It looks like this. Make sure that this clip is seated well and it's connected back the way it was. Okay, back to finishing the job. Connect the ground wires back. And then I'm gonna let this part run. So I did start the car. I tested it and it didn't really start the first couple of times. which is why I had to come back to connect everything, but it still wouldn't start. So then I replaced the spark plugs and the ignition coils. I had already planned for this job. It still didn't start, but what worked for me was that I left the key in the ignition and the on position without starting, and that was for a good 5 minutes. And then it finally started. But that was it for me. It did solve my codes. Good luck. And then let's talk about the last part, which is the cost. I mean, you can pause here, but I bought everything from Rock Auto. The part numbers are there. It was $478 for the fuel injectors, and then about $200 for the spark plugs and the ignition coils if you're interested in doing that. And then there's some couple of tools there that I bought that I didn't have before. But for me, it was all in at $728 and then about 12 hours of my own time. Thanks for watching and good luck on the job.